Hi there, it's Alison here again. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about how to use solar return charts. I've been practicing astrology for many years. I absolutely love it. It's my total passion and I want to share that with you today. This time I'm going to be sharing with you how to use solar return charts and how I use them in my astrology practice every day. Solar returns, your magic moment each year. What is a solar return chart? So in astrology, a solar return chart is a chart that is cast for the exact time that the sun reaches its natal position each year. So if you're in your natal chart, the sun is at 2723 Virgo, every year when the sun gets round to that exact position, that is when your solar return chart is cast for. So the sun's natal position is always the same as the sun's solar return position. So solar returns are great as a forecasting technique. It's known as the direct forecasting technique because it actually works with the transiting sun up there right now. Solar returns can be interpreted as standalone charts for each year. Once you've got the solar return, you can do an interpretation for you for that chart. In this video, we're going to be looking at some of the solar returns for Stephen King, the writer, and there's his natal chart there with the sun at 2723 Virgo. Because the solar return is a direct forecasting method, it looks at current transits, and that is the actual position that the sun is in, and the other planets, but mainly the sun, that the sun is in each year as your birthday comes round. The directing forecasting method is also, what it does is it captures a snapshot of the year for you at your actual birthday, and this is the chart that we use. So for instance, if there was an eclipse on your birthday, the eclipse will be built into your solar return chart and its effects will be felt for the year. The solar return chart lasts from one birthday to the next and may fade in slightly sooner. We'll talk about that as well. So the idea is that whatever was in the situation at the time of your birthday will be built into your solar return chart and will be part of your forecasting for the next 12 months. So how do you set up a solar return chart? So in your birth chart, the birth chart shows the place you were born. So if you were born in New York, that's the place you have, the city, right? But your solar return place, the actual birthplace for the solar return chart, as it were, where you cast the chart for, has to be the place where you are on your birthday at the time the sun returns to its natal position. And the reason for this is that because we are using a direct forecasting method and ultimately transits, and therefore they affect you where you are on Earth rather than where you were born. So when the sun comes to its natal position again each year around your birthday, that is the moment that you inhale the potentials of the universe that are captured in the snapshot of the solar return chart. And that is why you always relocate your solar return chart to the place you are on your birthday. Every year you will have a new solar return chart. You'll get one each year on your birthday. As the new one comes in, the old one fades out. So part of your annual forecast period, if you are an astrologer or you do consulting and so on, it's usable for clients to, very often an astrologer will offer you a discount during the month of your birthday to entice clients to come in and have all the Virgos come at once, then all the Libras come. And the idea with this is that then at that point, if you do get your clients coming in or around their birthday month, you can actually use the solar return chart as part of the forecasting for them when you're doing their interpretations. And of course you can as well if you're not an astrologer. The idea is that if you actually do a consultation 6 months from your birthday, you will have to use the previous solar return chart and the upcoming one. So the knack is that if you do client work in the birthday month, you can definitely make total use of the solar return chart, which is great. So let's just take some considerations of some date and time changes from the birth time. So if you say you were born in New York and you're now living in Vancouver, you're on a 3-hour different time zone, right? Eastern to Pacific. And because of that, you may find that the actual solar return sun does not actually get to its natal position on your actual birthday. It could be the day before, and of course if you're on the other side of the of where you were born, it could be the day later. So if you go west or east of your birthplace, the solar return chart may be dated for the day before or the day after your actual birthday, and so in some extreme cases it can actually be 2 days. So do not worry about that. The computer will actually calculate it for you. And the solar return birth time will be different to your natal birth time. When you're casting a solar return chart, you do not put in the time because it calculates the chart to the moment when the sun reaches its natal position. So these are just some concepts that maybe the time or date is slightly different, but don't worry about that. So in our example chart we have here now for Stephen King, he was actually originally born in Portland, Maine, way back in 1947, and I've now put in there a solar return chart for him for his visit to Vancouver in September 2018. Now here we can clearly see that his birthday was actually September the 21st, way back in 1947, but his actual solar return for 2018, because I've now relocated it to Vancouver for his visit here, it will be on September the 20th. So it's actually the day before the birthday. So the calculation can bring you 2 different dates, and certainly the times are different as well. But you will notice that the sun is still in the exact same position to the degree, minute and second of 27 degrees Virgo 23. So when would you actually cast a solar return chart? They will typically come into effect 1 or 2 months before your birthday. So if your birthday is in September, you may get the rumbling starts of this solar return coming in July and August. You will specifically get it the month at the time when the sun enters your natal solar sign. So if you are a Virgo, as soon as the sun moves into Virgo, you're actually going to be able to use this chart, no problem. Typically a solar return chart will last up to 10 to 12 months after your birthday, again depending, because there is a slight overlap. It doesn't just happen that on the moment of your solar return, bam, you're using the new chart. It does tend to come in. So if you're halfway through the year, you will be quite solidly in the one, but as you're coming towards your birthday, and certainly as the sun enters the sign of that your sun is in natally, then you will be using the next solar return chart. And that's what I'm saying there, that when the transiting sun enters your natal sun sign, you actually will be using the new solar return chart. But there is a situation where you may use 2 solar return charts at one time, and this would be that if it's 6 months from your last birthday, so say your birthday is in July, so if the time is actually 6 months between your birthday and your birthday is in 6 months' time, you will then have the opportunity of using your previous solar return, and you could possibly even be looking at your current solar return as well. And then you would start to look to the next solar return. The point is that you would typically either use one solar return chart if you're close to your birthday. If you're far from it, you would definitely use the previous year's one. So I'm talking to you now in 2018, so you would then go back to 2017, and it does depend exactly when your birthday is, how you would choose to do that. The point is that if we're here in 2018, you know your birthday is coming, you'll cast that chart anyway, and then if you're looking into do some 12-month forecasting, you may even cast the 2019 one as well to see how the actual pattern's going to be changing there. Now you can also use bi-wheels with solar returns, and with all bi-wheels you put your natal chart in the inner wheel and you put the solar return chart on the outer wheel. And of course you would do that if you were doing secondary progressions or transits or so on, because actually the solar return chart is a snapshot of the transits at the actual time that the sun came to its position. So in this particular chart there, we have Stephen King's, his natal chart is on the inside, and the sun there, as you can see, is at 2723, and so is his solar return sun as well. So we've laid the two charts on each other. And the point of this is that you want to be looking at it and interpret it in different ways. So you would look at the solar return angles. So the angles are very important. And the zodiac sign on the solar return ascendant will clue you into the year ahead. Now this is very interesting because, say for instance in your natal chart you've got, I don't know, Capricorn ascendant, and then on your solar return you've got an Aquarian ascendant. It's a whole different flavor. So as the solar return charts come up each year, you get an opportunity to almost flex your muscles into a different sign that you perhaps have never experienced. And any planet that is conjunct an angle in the solar return chart will be prominent for that year. So this is what we're looking for. On the solar return angles, in this particular case in his chart, his ascendant there is Leo, his midheaven is Aries, the descendant is Aquarius, and the IC is Libra. So that's what we're looking for. He's now, for 2018, when he comes to Vancouver, he's got the Leo ascendant coming through. And any planets conjunct an angle, which is the second point we were saying, is Uranus conjunct the midheaven and the moon conjunct the descendant. Now these are important planets. These are the first two planets that have come to our attention as we started looking at this solar return chart. So Uranus conjunct the midheaven, highly important for career and public life, and the moon conjunct the descendant, interestingly in the 6th house and not the 7th. But anyway, so that's what you're looking for there. So in this particular chart for him, for this particular year for him in Vancouver, he's got Uranus conjunct the midheaven, and he's got the moon conjunct the descendant. So the solar return ascendant sign, it indicates the way you will present yourself in the year. So of course in the bi-wheel you can see there that the ascendant is at 12 Leo, and we know that because we saw the chart. And the thing is that when it is different, it offers you a chance to express yourself through a different lens or filter. So in his case, he has natally has a Cancer ascendant, and this year he's actually got a Leo ascendant in his solar return chart. So it's a way for him to present himself through a different lens or filter during the course of this year, and he can definitely tap into those Leo energies and be perhaps more creative, outgoing, and dare I say pushy, rather than the Cancerian, which is a different mood altogether. Where the solar return ascendant falls in your natal chart. The natal house, which contains your solar return ascendant, needs close inspection. It is through this portal that you will express yourself that year. So what we have here is that his solar return ascendant is falling in his natal chart. It appears in his natal chart in the 1st house. So that's really quite a prominent position. It's a powerful position for any planet or point to be, and with the solar return ascendant in his 1st house, although not the same sign. This is the subtlety of this. He's going to be able to be more, I want to say, well, all 1st housey things, right? You'd also perhaps note in this particular case that ascendant is conjunct the Pluto and a stretch the Saturn as well. So the importance of a solar return chart, actually it all hinges on the sun. That this solar return chart comes from the sun's position, and therefore the whole actual chart really hinges on the sun and makes the sun the most important thing in a solar return chart. And there is a particular pattern to how the solar return's house placement comes out each year you do a solar return. So it doesn't always appear in the same house or in the same position, and there's a pattern that comes through. And of course astrologers love patterns. It's interesting, and we're just going to have a quick look at that. So the solar return sun by house pattern, the sun will spend around 10 years in the angular houses, and then it will move into the succedent houses and then into the cadent houses, and then it will cover all the houses over a 30-year period. So it does move slightly each year. And the point is too that this is only holds true if you do not move, if you are in the same place. So say you are in Vancouver year in, year in, year in, the pattern will remain. It doesn't really matter where the pattern is, but the point is that if you have the sun on a cusp, you would want to definitely make sure you've got the right solar return there. So let's just have a look at Stephen King's solar return position. So this is for 2018, and there we have the sun in the 3rd house. And then in 2019, the sun is in the 12th house because it's now in the cadent houses, rotating clockwise, and then it will actually be in the 9th house. So although the midheaven's moving and all the rest of it, the sun is actually maintaining house position. If we go into the next year or two, we could predict from this one that we should expect to see the sun then perhaps in the 6th house, the next cadent house, and lo and behold, there it is. So even though again these house cusps are different sizes and so on, and then ultimately we would expect to see it back again in the 3rd house. So this is slowly cycling through, and the sun is moving ever so slightly through the cadent, and then it will go through the angular, and then it will go through the succedent house positions. So there is a specific way that the pattern shifts, and it works perfectly under 3 specific criteria. The first is if you live on the equator, it will always do this. If you use the equal house system, which I actually don't, I use Placidus, but anyway, and if you never move house. So although there is a pattern, and if you stay in the same place all your life, you will always have this pattern rotating through. It's just an interesting thing to note, and it doesn't really make much difference to the solar return itself, but there is a cycle going on within the solar returns year on year on year on, created by the sun as it moves through the houses. So if you do move place, this pattern will be interrupted. So as I said, the sun is in the angular houses for 10 years, and it moves to succedent and then into cadent. So the point is that you could become a solar return traveler, and this is somebody who looks at their next solar return position and says, oh, perhaps the sun's going in the 12th house, and then think, I don't really want to have a 12th house sun year. I want to perhaps launch a business. So perhaps you would want to have a solar return sun either in the 1st house, where it's prominent for you, perhaps in the 10th house, where it will be prominent for your career, or even at a stretch in your 6th house, which is where work comes from. But the point is that if you decide that you need to find that your next solar return suns will fall in your 10th house, what you can do is calculate a chart perhaps for Tokyo, perhaps for London, perhaps for New York, and see which city you will have a 10th house solar return sun, and decide to take a vacation there over your birthday during the time when the sun actually matches back to its natal position, and you will then be able to capture that snapshot of that solar return chart for yourself with the 10th house sun. So, I know some astrologers in Toronto who actually do this, and sometimes you don't have to travel very far. If you want to move the solar return sun from the 12th house into your 1st house to have a more positive year, you can just virtually go 200 kilometers away from where you live just for the weekend of your birthday, or even travel there for the actual hour when the sun is going to perfect that position to your natal sun. So it's kind of interesting. Once you get the hang of it, you start looking forward and saying, well, where's the solar return sun going to fall next year? Is that the sort of year I'm looking for, or am I trying to do something else with my life? So there it is. That's the first part about solar returns. There are two more parts coming along, and we'll be exploring solar returns further in those. I will link the 2 other extra videos in the show notes below. If you know which house your solar return sun is in this year, write it in the comments below. Please make sure to subscribe and like my videos. It does help me grow. I would like to thank everyone who supported me in the creation of this video. I could not have done it without you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.